Before we cross into the unknown, leave a hello in the comments. Even the smallest signal can ripple across galaxies, guiding fellow wanderers to this tale. Let me know you're out there. A voice among the stars, listening with me beyond the veil. Engines roared as the patrol fleet cut across the border lanes, their hulls gleaming under the pale light of a dying star. I, Admiral Therax, had dispatched them myself, veterans of countless skirmishes, armed with precision weaponry and trusted with the defense of the Empire's frontier. Yet, hours later, their signals flickered, one by one, before dissolving into static. No distress beacons, no survivors, just silence. The border went dark, as though the void had swallowed them whole. At first, command whispered of pirates, bold raiders emboldened by our stretched lines, but pirates do not erase fleets in silence. Pirates do not leave wreckage that glows with cuts too precise, too surgical. The reports chilled me. Hulls split open from within, crews gone without a trace, black boxes purged. It was no accident, no rebellion. Something hunted us, something with patience. The Empire thought the border secure. I felt the first tremor of truth. It was not. Our analysts found nothing. No warp signatures, no ion trails, no trace of pursuit. The patrols simply vanished. Captains spoke in hushed tones, afraid the void itself had grown teeth. I gathered them in the war hall, every officer draped in crimson banners of the Empire. My words faltered, for I could not explain the impossible. Fear stalked our ranks as an unseen predator closed in. But in the silence, one fragment was recovered. A distorted transmission, scrambled but undeniable. A single phrase repeated in a tongue not heard for centuries. For Earth, for humanity. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Humanity was erased generations ago, purged from our records, destroyed in fire, yet the voice was clear. They had returned, not as diplomats, not as beggars, but as hunters. 3 destroyers were sent to secure Sector Delta 9. I monitored from the command dais as they vanished from long-range comms. Moments later, the images streamed in, shadows breaching their hulls, precision rail strikes tearing engines apart. Their ships drifted, powerless, before detonating in silent blossoms of fire. No enemy signature, no identity. But the method was unmistakable. Humanity knew our weaknesses. They had studied us. Our officers called it a phantom war. Enemy ships did not decloak, did not announce themselves. They struck from silence, their weapons tuned to exploit blind spots in our defenses. To fight an enemy you cannot see is terror enough. But to fight one you had consigned to extinction, that is madness. I clenched my fist as I swore. Humanity would not reclaim a single world without drowning in its own blood. Trade convoys began to falter. Merchants whispered of unseen ambushes, of escorts sliced apart in seconds. Colonies sent frantic signals demanding protection, yet we could not cover every border lane. The Senate grew restless, demanding explanations I could not provide. I felt the Empire's foundation quake. Fear spread faster than truth. In my private chamber, I replayed the recovered transmission. Humanity's vow echoed endlessly. I saw not desperation, but strategy. They struck where we were weakest, vanished before retaliation, and left survivors only to spread tales of terror. This was no rebellion, it was reclamation. They wanted every world we had stolen, and they would take them, one fleet at a time. We convened at the High Citadel. Every admiral summoned beneath the obsidian spires. Some demanded retreat, fortify the core worlds until the threat revealed itself. Others urged annihilation, scour the border with fire until nothing human remained. I listened in silence, the weight of command heavy upon me. When my turn came, I spoke the words that would ignite war. Humanity has returned. They hunt us as shadows, reclaiming the forgotten. But we are not prey. We are the Empire. And I swear, for every fleet they erase, we will burn 10 of their worlds. This is not a defense. This is retribution." The chamber erupted in thunderous vows. We would face the silent hunters. The war had begun. The Korath patrol was elite. Veterans forged in campaigns that had shattered empires. They launched with pride, banners unfurled, their presence meant to restore confidence to frightened colonies. I watched their departure from the command balcony, certain they would return. But within 2 days their signals flickered out. No distress calls, no wreckage, only empty coordinates. The colonies screamed betrayal. How could legends fall so easily? The truth gnawed at me. This was no random strike. Humanity chose its targets with precision, striking those who symbolized our strength. To erase Korath was to carve fear into the Empire's bones. For the first time, I questioned whether we commanded the frontier, or if it now belonged to them. Engineers reported anomalies in our surveillance grid. Blind spots blooming across sectors, sensors blinded by static. At first, we suspected a malfunction, but the patterns were too deliberate, too coordinated. Humanity had infiltrated our networks, weaving silence into the void. They hunted unseen, and now they could blind us as well. I ordered countermeasures, encrypted relays, layered scans, overlapping patrols. Yet every precaution was undone within days. It was as though our enemy anticipated every move. A captain whispered the unthinkable. They have studied us for centuries. If that was true, then we fought an enemy that knew us better than we knew ourselves. At last, a fragment was found, wreckage drifting near the Orion verge. I traveled personally to inspect it. The hull bore strange scars, circular burns unlike any weapon in our arsenal. Inside, corridors were stripped of crew, blood frozen on walls, but no bodies remained. Humanity had taken them. Alive or dead, I did not know. The engineers trembled as they reported. These were precision boarding strikes executed with chilling efficiency. They had cut through bulkheads like paper, bypassed security, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. This was not slaughter. This was abduction. And I feared the purpose more than the loss itself. What did humanity want with our crews? Panic consumed the border worlds. Riots erupted, governors begged for fleets, and whispers spread that the Empire could no longer protect them. Some dared to speak heresy, that humanity had returned to reclaim their birthright and the colonies should surrender rather than resist. I silenced those voices with steel, but the doubt had already taken root. The Senate demanded a demonstration of strength. They wanted blood, spectacle, vengeance. I proposed the Iron Spear offensive, a sweeping assault through the border lanes to hunt down the hidden enemy. But inside, I knew it was folly. We were blind, striking at shadows. Yet the Empire demanded fire, and so fire I would give them. We launched with fury. 1,000 ships surged into the frontier, engines blazing like suns across the void. It was the greatest mobilization since the Purge Wars. Colonies cheered as the fleet thundered past, certain that humanity would be crushed beneath our might. I stood at the helm of the flagship, steel in my voice, but doubt in my heart. For 3 days, the void was silent. No enemies revealed themselves, no ambushes struck. Some believed we had driven them off. Then, on the 4th day, the traps sprang. Entire wings vanished in simultaneous detonations, their comms cut, their wreckage shredded. Humanity had not fled. They had been waiting. We had marched into their hunting ground, and they closed the jaws. The Iron Spear fractured. Our formations, designed for overwhelming firepower, collapsed under invisible pressure. Ships died without warning, hulls gutted by silent strikes, engines crushed by rail slugs launched from nowhere. Panic rippled through the fleet as captains screamed into dead channels. Humanity did not fight us head-on, they tore us apart from the shadows. I watched the tactical grid bleed red, a slow unraveling of order into chaos. My officers demanded retreat, but I held. To withdraw would be to admit weakness to both enemy and empire. Yet every instinct told me we were prey. The hunters had sprung their trap. We traced a faint beacon, believing it a distress call from one of our missing ships. A rescue wing was dispatched. Hours later, we received only static and one last image. A human ship, black and angular, its hull marked with a sigil long forbidden, the Earth emblem. My officers froze, some whispering prayers, others curses. That emblem was supposed to be ash, erased from history. Yet here it was, stamped on a warship that moved like a phantom. They wanted us to see it. They wanted us to know. Humanity had not merely returned, they declared themselves openly now. And their message was simple. We are here. We are not done. Argath, jewel of the border, fell in a single night. Its planetary shields collapsed in silence, sabotaged from within. Defense batteries never fired. By dawn, its cities burned under human bombardment. Survivors fled into the void, speaking of black-armored soldiers who moved like wraiths, striking with precision before vanishing into smoke. I stood in the Senate as the report was read. Murmurs turned into outrage, outrage into panic. How could humans breach our shields? They demanded. I had no answer. The truth was worse than ignorance. They had studied our systems, our codes, our doctrines. Every weapon we trusted was already theirs to dismantle. Our vassal species watched with unease. Some whispered that the Empire had grown weak, that our dominion was crumbling. One envoy dared suggest negotiating with humanity. I silenced him with a single command, but I could see it in their eyes. Loyalty was cracking. If our allies turned, we would stand alone against the shadows. In council, my captains asked the forbidden, "Admiral, what if humanity cannot be stopped?" My voice was steel when I answered, "Then we will burn with the Empire, but humanity will burn first." Yet inside, I knew the truth. Humanity was not merely winning battles. They were reshaping the galaxy, one world at a time. A message reached us, unencrypted, broadcast across the frontier. The voice was calm, steady, and human. Every world stolen from Earth shall be reclaimed. Every empire built on our ashes will fall. We are the forgotten, the erased, the hunters returned. It played on every frequency, echoing in every colony. The Senate trembled with fury, but fear lingered in every silence. I clenched my fist as the vow burned into my mind. They were not striking blindly. They had a creed, a strategy, a war of reclamation. This was not piracy. This was not a rebellion. It was the rise of a species we had consigned to extinction. And they would not stop until the galaxy remembered their name. I ordered the construction of the counternet. Layered detection buoys, overlapping sensor fields, and drone sentries spanning 3 sectors. It was the Empire's most advanced lattice, designed to trap anything that moved. For a week, silence held. My officers dared to hope. Perhaps we had caged the hunters. Then the lattice went dark. Not shattered in fire, but unraveled piece by piece. Buoys blinked out as though plucked by invisible hands. Drone feeds showed only brief shadows before collapsing into static. When the last node fell, a single human transmission cut through. "We see you. You cannot see us." Theros Prime fell next. Its orbital stations were gutted before their gunners could react. Its defense fleet erased in 30 minutes. When we arrived, the planet burned, its oceans boiling, its skies black with ash. Only fragments of their last broadcast survived. Screams, then silence. The Senate demanded vengeance. But vengeance is useless when you strike at shadows. Our fleets arrive only after the killing is done, left to collect corpses and shattered cities. The people no longer ask if we can protect them. They ask when we will fall, and I have no answer. Intelligence officers compiled humanity's tactics into a doctrine: hit and fade assaults, infiltration of infrastructure, precise strikes on morale centers. They did not conquer, they erased. Each move is calculated not for territory, but for terror. And it worked. Entire sectors refused deployment, captains resigning rather than vanish into the void. I studied their doctrine for hours, searching for weakness, yet I found only reflections of ourselves, strategies we once used to crush lesser foes. Humanity had turned our own playbook against us, wielding it with perfection. Every lesson we taught the galaxy now returned, sharpened in their hands. A border garrison mutinied. Believing resistance futile, they surrendered their fortress to humanity without firing a shot. When I learned of it, I felt the foundations of our empire crack. If fear spread faster than loyalty, then humanity did not need to fight every battle. Worlds would fall willingly. I ordered the traitors executed, their names erased from the record, yet whispers spread regardless. Better to yield than vanish. The phrase slithered through colonies and barracks alike. Humanity's true weapon was not railguns or shadows. It was a belief. They convinced our people that the Empire could no longer win. Scouts reported glimpses of vast shapes moving in the void, human ships larger than any we remembered from their extinction wars. At first, we dismissed them as illusions, but then fragments of intercepted code revealed the truth. Humanity was not striking with raiders. They had built an armada, and it was moving. I stood in the war chamber, watching the stars shift as reports flooded in. They were not content to reclaim the borders. They were massing for something greater. The hunters had drawn blood. Now they came for war. The question was no longer if they would strike the core, but when. The Senate commanded us to forge fortress worlds. Planets were armed with orbital cannons, layered shields, and defense rings stretching across orbit. Garrisons swelled, propaganda blared. The Empire endures. Citizens cheered, believing themselves safe behind steel and fire. I wished I could share their certainty, for I knew the truth. Fortress worlds were monuments to fear, not strength. Humanity would not attack head-on. They would slip through the cracks, unravel the systems from within, and leave us hollow. Still, I obeyed orders. To do less would invite rebellion, and so we built fortresses I suspected were tombs. We deployed the bait fleet. 30 cruisers, their drives broadcasting false weaknesses, luring humanity into the open. My officers watched eagerly, hoping to catch a phantom. Hours stretched. Then, at last, shadows emerged, human ships sliding from the dark like predators. The trap was sprung. For a moment, victory seemed close. Our guns roared, missiles launched. But humanity did not scatter. They adapted, countered, and tore through the formation as if they had known the plan from the beginning. By the time I ordered retreat, half the fleet was gone. The hunters had feasted, and the bait had been us. We discovered abandoned stations near the Vare Rift. Inside, entire crews had vanished. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Consoles were active, meals half-eaten, as if the occupants had simply dissolved into the void. Engineers called it the harvest. My blood chilled at the implication. Humanity was not just killing. They were taking. What did they want with our people? Prisoners? Experiments? Recruits? None dared to guess aloud, but every new disappearance planted dread in our ranks. Soldiers no longer feared death. They feared vanishing into humanity's hands, never to be seen again. And fear, I knew, was the deadliest contagion. The first pulse strike shattered our confidence. A single human frigate emerged, unleashed a wave of energy, and crippled 6 of our ships in one instant. Their engines died, their shields collapsed, their weapons froze. Then, as helpless hulls drifted, humanity cut them apart with surgical fire. Our scientists analyzed the fragments. The weapon was not new. It was evolution, a hybrid of electromagnetic disruption and something we did not yet understand. It bypassed safeguards, rewrote defenses mid-battle. I realized then, Humanity had not just returned with stolen tactics. They had advanced while we stagnated, and we were now fighting a future we did not comprehend. Reports poured in. Multiple human fleets converging, striking in coordinated patterns across 3 sectors. Each attack is precise, timed, and deliberate. This was no scattered rebellion. It was a campaign. Humanity was assembling its silent armada piece by piece, shaping the battlefield before our eyes. I stood at the star map, lines of red bleeding across our borders. The Senate demanded counterattacks, but I saw futility in their orders. Humanity did not want skirmishes. They wanted us spread thin, exhausted, desperate, and when the time came, they would strike the heart. I whispered to myself, unheard, the storm has come, and we are unprepared. Rios was our strongest fortress world, a citadel of guns and shields orbiting a thriving colony. We believed it was impregnable. Humanity proved us wrong in a single night. Their ships appeared in silence, striking power conduits with pinpoint accuracy. Shields failed, batteries died, and before dawn, the colony's skies burned red. I received survivors' reports. Families herded into transports not slain, but taken. Humanity had not come to annihilate. They had come to reclaim. The colony once bore human soil, human ruins beneath our banners. Now it belonged to them again. And for the first time, I understood. This was not conquest. It was a return. The Senate unveiled Project Crucible, an orbital weapon designed to ignite atmospheres, consuming entire worlds in fire. If humanity wants reclamation, they said, we will leave them nothing to reclaim. My stomach twisted as the order reached me. It was madness, yet desperation gave it voice. We tested Crucible on a barren moon. The sky split, stone boiled, and the surface cracked into molten rivers. My officers cheered, but I saw only doom. If we wielded this, humanity would respond in kind, or worse. We had shown them our fear, and fear is a weapon they already mastered. Whispers crept through my own command. Officers questioned every order, suspicious that spies walked among us. Humanity's silence had made us paranoid. Every failure was seen as betrayal. When a captain hesitated during engagement, he was executed on the spot. I did not stop it. Fear had infected us all. In quiet moments, I wondered, had humanity already infiltrated us? Our codes, our networks, our minds? They struck with uncanny precision, anticipating every move. Perhaps the war was already lost, not on the battlefield, but in the unseen war for thought and trust. The greatest collapse may come from within. Humanity struck Jorath III, a colony built upon the ruins of their old cities. They bypassed defenses, dismantled garrisons, and raised their ancient banners above the capital spire. Footage spread through the frontier, soldiers saluting in silence as the flag of Earth unfurled. To the Empire, it was humiliation. To the border worlds, it was a revelation. The humans reclaim what is theirs, they whispered. Rebellion kindled in their hearts. For every fortress we built, humanity restored a memory. And memories, I realized, were stronger than fear. They were building not just an army, but a legend. The War Council fractured. Some demanded total war, the use of crucible weapons to burn every contested planet. Others urged retreat, fortify the core, and abandon the frontier. Voices rose, threats sharpened, alliances frayed. We no longer spoke as one empire. We spoke as wolves circling in fear. I stood silent, listening to the madness spread. Humanity had not needed to break our fleets with fire. They had broken us with shadows, doubt, and memory. As the council dissolved in chaos, I made my private vow. If the Empire could not hold, then I alone would, even if it meant burning the stars themselves. Scouts returned from the Perseid expanse with images that froze the council in silence. Dozens, no, hundreds, of human warships gathered in formation, their hulls black and angular, their engines cloaked in silence. This was no scattered rebellion. It was a fleet, vast enough to challenge empires. For centuries, we told ourselves humanity was ash, incapable of such power. Yet before us was proof. They had built an armada in the shadows of history. And as I watched the grainy images flicker, one thought gnawed at me. If this was only what they allowed us to see, how much more hid in the dark? They struck without declaration, without demand. 5 colonies burned in a single coordinated assault. Orbital rings collapsed, defense fleets erased, cities reduced to rubble. Humanity moved as if orchestrated by one hand, each strike synchronized across light years. We scrambled to respond, but by the time fleets mobilized, the damage was done. Survivors spoke of human precision, how they spared infrastructure yet shattered symbols of our rule. They were not just taking worlds. They were dismantling our empire piece by piece, image by image, until nothing of our dominion remained. The Senate's patience ended. They ordered Project Crucible deployed on a contested world. I watched from orbit as its atmosphere ignited, turning oceans to steam, cities to flame, skies to red. The colony screamed as it died, a warning to humanity. But warnings cut both ways. Hours later, transmissions surfaced, human voices condemning us, human soldiers swearing vengeance for every burned civilian. By wielding the crucible, we did not terrify them. We justified them. For every world we burned, they vowed to reclaim 10 more. And I knew their vow was not empty. Fear consumed command. Admirals accused one another of treachery. Governors executed subordinates for imagined collusion. Loyalty tests spread across the fleet, breaking trust faster than any human strike. We were eating ourselves alive. I saw the danger clearly. Humanity did not need to infiltrate us. We were doing their work for them. Every purge weakened us, every execution frayed our unity. And still, I could not stop it. The Empire was cracking, and humanity had only to watch it collapse under its own weight. The crippled ships detonated in silence, unleashing waves that blinded sensors and crippled our fleet. From the darkness, the rest of the silent armada emerged. They had sacrificed their own to bait us. As our ships burned, I realized the truth. Humanity did not fear loss. They embraced it, wielded it, and turned it into the sharpest blade of all. Meridian was the gate to the core, a bastion world bristling with fleets and fortified rings. We believed it unassailable. Humanity proved us wrong in a single night. They breached the orbital ring with silent detonations, disabled command relays, and struck from within. By dawn, Meridian burned. Its fall shook the Empire to its foundation. Meridian was not merely a world, it was a promise of safety. That promise died in the fire. Colonies cried out for salvation, and governors begged for fleets we no longer had. And in their silence, humanity pressed forward, unstoppable. The Senate convulsed with chaos. Some demanded surrender, others demanded extermination. Voices clashed in fury, drowning in fear. I watched from the war chamber, silent as vultures tore each other apart. They no longer governed. They survived, clinging to fading power. Rumors spread of human soldiers known as Black Blades. Armored in shadow, they slipped through defenses, dismantling command nodes with surgical precision. Survivors spoke of eyes glowing in the dark, voices whispering oaths of reclamation before the killing stroke. My officers dismissed them as myths. I did not. Humanity understood the power of fear, and they wielded it with mastery. Each whispered tale spread faster than any victory. Whether blades were real or not no longer mattered. In the minds of our soldiers, they already haunted every shadow. The crews roared in reply, desperate to believe. Yet I felt the hollowness of my words. For even as I spoke, humanity struck 3 more colonies, their banners rising where ours once stood. My vow was not to inspire them. It was to remind myself that surrender would never leave my lips. Not while I still drew breath. The heart of the Empire stirred at last. From hidden vaults, we unearthed warships older than memory, titans of steel built in ages past. Entire fleets rose from slumber, engines screaming, their cannons designed to scorch stars. If humanity wished to strike the core, they would meet fire like never before. Yet, even as the giants awoke, I wondered, had we risen too late? Humanity had already shaped the battlefield, fractured our unity, and claimed our borders. Still, the order was clear. Gather every ship, every blade, every weapon of annihilation. For the final war was coming. The hunters had roused the beast. Engines thundered as the core armada surged forth. Thousands of ships, ancient titans and fresh-forged destroyers, moved as one. The void itself seemed to tremble at their passage. I stood at the command dais, pride warring with dread. This was our last, greatest spear. Scouts reported human movements at the frontier. Instead of retreating, the silent armada advanced. They did not scatter, did not hide. They came to meet us openly, a shadow to our flame. For the first time in centuries, 2 civilizations marched toward a single battlefield. It began at the Terran expanse. Human frigates struck our forward wings, slipping between our lines with impossible speed. Our gunners roared, shredding dozens, yet still they came. Fire painted the void, wreckage drifted like stars. Humanity bled, but so did we. I watched the tactical grid flare red. Every time we broke their formation, they reformed with precision. Every time we claimed a victory, they struck back twice as hard. The first clash ended in a stalemate, fleets limping apart, but I knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had tested us. The true storm had yet to break. Days later, the humans struck with fury unlike anything before. Pulse weapons crippled wings, black blades infiltrated flagships, and their banners rose in fire across contested systems. Our fleets reeled, battered on every front. I had thought them raiders. They were executioners. One message repeated across every channel. For every world you burned, we reclaim 10. Their vow echoed in the screams of my officers, the ruin of my fleets. Humanity did not merely fight us, they judged us, and their verdict was fire. At last, our ancient titans engaged. Dreadnoughts older than memory, each bristling with starkiller cannons, unleashed their wrath. Human cruisers shattered in the first volleys, entire wings erased in incandescent light. For a moment, victory was ours. But the hunters had planned even for this. Swarms of smaller vessels slipped past the Titans' guns, tearing at their flanks with surgical strikes. One by one, the giants faltered, bleeding fire into the void. We had awakened our beasts too late. Humanity had already learned how to slay them. The battle raged across the Terran expanse for 6 days. Entire star systems burned, fleets shattered, wreckage blotting out the stars. Neither side yielded. Humanity pressed with vengeance, and we resisted with fury. It was no longer war. It was annihilation. When the smoke cleared, neither side could claim victory. Dozens of worlds were reduced to ash, our fleets broken, theirs bloodied but unbowed. Yet I saw the truth written in the wreckage. The Empire had lost its certainty. Humanity had lost nothing but chains. The final reckoning was coming, and only one would rise from the ruin. Scouts brought word I had dreaded. Humanity had breached the final frontier. Their silent armada moved through the core lanes, their banners of earth carried on warships black as night. Colonies near the heart cried for salvation, but no fleets remained to send. I stood in the command chamber, listening to their panic, their screams. For centuries, we had called humanity extinct. Now, their shadows walked the heart of our empire. Every world they touched fell silent, not because they burned it, but because they claimed it. Their silence was more terrifying than fire. Our vassal species broke their oaths. Seeing our fleets in ruin, they pledged loyalty to humanity, swearing themselves to the reclamation. Former allies turned their guns against us, crippling supply lines and abandoning their posts. The empire we had ruled for millennia crumbled in weeks. I cursed them as cowards, but in my heart I understood. Humanity offered them hope. We offered only chains and fear. Every betrayal carved us deeper, until the war was not only against humans, but against the very galaxy we once commanded. The Senate, mad with desperation, ordered crucible weapons deployed against the coreward colonies already claimed by humanity. I tried to forbid it, but they overruled me. Flames consumed billions, skies turned black, seas boiled. The empire burned its own heart rather than see it reclaimed. But humanity answered. They broadcast images of the slaughter, of children turned to ash, of cities erased. Across the stars, even loyal worlds recoiled in horror. The Senate believed fire would terrify our foes. Instead, it damned us. Humanity no longer needed to convince the galaxy to hate us. We had done it ourselves. Kalor, jewel of the inner core, became the stage of our last stand. Fleets gathered, shields locked, weapons charged. I swore to hold the line, even as dread gnawed at me. The silent armada descended with precision, encircling us, cutting every escape. For 3 days, Kalor's skies blazed with war. Our dreadnoughts roared, their cannons shattering human wings. But for every ship we felled, 2 more emerged. Humanity struck not for destruction, but for reclamation. When their banners rose over Kalor's citadel, I knew the truth. The heart was already lost. In the aftermath of Kalor's fall, the Senate dissolved into chaos. Some fled into exile, others turned their weapons on each other, clawing for scraps of power. Our empire, once eternal, splintered into factions, each too proud to yield, too broken to fight. I remained, watching the stars burn. Humanity had not simply defeated us, they had unraveled us. Every fleet lost, every world reclaimed, every betrayal sharpened their legend. The hunters had returned not just for vengeance, but for memory. And the galaxy, at last, remembered its name. The capital world, Zereth, rose like a fortress amid a dying galaxy. Its walls bristled with orbital cannons, its skies choked with defenders. I watched from the flagship bridge, heart heavy, knowing this would be our final stand. The Empire's pride converged here, but I feared pride alone would not save us. Reports came of the silent armada massing at the fringe of the system. Hundreds of human warships, shadowed by stealth frigates, coalesced into a tidal wave of black steel. Their advance was patient, methodical, and absolute. Humanity did not rush. They did not strike prematurely. They had learned the cost of underestimating us. The first human frigates appeared above Zereth's northern hemisphere. Shields flared, cannons thundered, and yet within moments the frigates slipped past our orbital defenses, disabling weapons platforms and severing supply relays. Panic spread among the garrison. Humanity had come not to conquer, but to dismantle from within. I barked orders, attempting to seal breaches, to drive the intruders back, but every counterstrike faltered. The black blades moved silently among the stations, severing command lines and leaving chaos in their wake. Our largest bastion was already fractured, and still humanity pressed forward. Entire districts burned as boarding parties of human soldiers infiltrated the cities. Resistance fought fiercely, but against precision strikes and knowledge of every street, every tunnel, we fell rapidly. Civilian casualties mounted, morale shattered, and fear gripped even the bravest officers. I walked among the command towers, watching my own officers break under pressure. Humanity's creed, reclaim, not destroy, yet instill terror, worked faster than any bombardment. Zereth was no longer a world of defense. It was a crucible, testing the Empire's very will. And we were failing. Above Zareth, the fleet engaged in desperate maneuvers. Titans roared their last, shields flared, and cannons fired relentlessly. Yet every strategy was countered. Human cruisers anticipated our formations, striking flanks we believed secure, decimating wings in seconds. The fleet's cohesion dissolved into scattered pockets of resistance. I realized then that the battle had already been lost, not in fire or steel, but in command. Humanity had studied us, understood us, and moved like a predator through our formation. Even our most formidable ships were now nothing more than obstacles in their path. The citadel of Zareth, once the beating heart of the Empire, lay exposed. Supply lines cut, defenses shattered, and morale in ruins. It was only a matter of hours before the silent armada reached the surface. Humanity did not hesitate. They moved as though the world belonged to them. I stood on the observation deck, watching black warships descend through orbital fire. For centuries, we had ruled the stars. For centuries, we had believed humanity was gone. Now they returned, not as whispers or ghosts, but as the reclaimers of every lost world. The final chapter had begun, and I feared it would end with the Empire in ashes. The silent armada moved as one, black shadows cutting through Zareth's shattered skies. Orbital guns roared, Titans fired their last, but humanity flowed around us, precise and inexorable. Every defense we erected was bypassed, every strategy anticipated. I watched helplessly as human boarding parties secured the orbital platforms. The heart of the Empire, long thought untouchable, now lay bare. In centuries of war, I had never felt such certainty in defeat. Humanity was here, not to negotiate, not to parley, but to reclaim. Ground explosions shattered the cityscape as human troops moved like shadows through streets and tunnels. Resistance fought, but each firefight ended in silence. Barracks, command towers, and plazas fell under coordinated strikes. The Empire's capital burned from within, the proud banners torn and replaced with Earth's sigils. I walked among the survivors, observing the terror and awe. Humanity did not destroy what could be reclaimed. They moved with purpose, precision, and remembrance. Every liberated district was a message. The galaxy had forgotten them once. Never again. I gathered the remnants of the fleet in orbit, desperate for one final strike. Titans, destroyers, frigates, all that remained of centuries of dominion. We aimed to break their formation, even at the cost of our own lives. Humanity anticipated the maneuver. Their fleet divided and struck with surgical efficiency, cutting us down ship by ship. The void lit with fire and twisted metal. One by one, our ships fell silent. The last of the Empire's pride drifted into darkness, and only I remained to witness the Reclaimers' triumph. With Zareth fallen, humanity raised its banners over every reclaimed world. Colonies long stolen from their ancestors were restored, governors replaced with those who remembered the old Earth, the old ways. Humanity moved not with vengeance, but with reclamation, carefully preserving what could be preserved. I watched the broadcasts, hearing their words. For every world taken, we return with remembrance. For every life erased, we restore memory. The galaxy shuddered under the weight of their legacy. Even in defeat, the Empire had left a mark, but humanity now dictated its future. I stood alone on the bridge of my flagship, staring at a galaxy reshaped by fire, shadow, and memory. Humanity had returned, silent hunters no longer hidden. They moved among the stars as reclaimers, legends reborn, unstoppable. The void that once feared us now belonged to them. Engines roared. Not ours, not in defiance, but in final witness. As Earth's sigils spread across every recovered world, I whispered the last words of an empire. They were forgotten once. Never again. And in the silence that followed, a new dawn rose over the galaxy. One of memory, reclamation, and the enduring legacy of humanity. The end. Thank you for watching AstroMyths. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button and subscribe for more epic sci-fi tales, cosmic mysteries, and mind-bending myths. And if you like this story, or have a myth, mystery, or galaxy you'd like us to explore, drop your ideas in the comments. We're always listening. Until next time, keep your eyes on the stars and your mind open to the unknown.